Today is April 9th. I'm at the Loxahatchee National Wildlife Refuge. Oh, I've already got a fish on. Already had a fish on. Well, should have been talking, should have been fishing, but I lost that guy. Well, I'm here to see how things have been. I haven't been here in about 6 weeks. Been fishing elsewhere, but I wanted to give it a try. I'm going to start off with spinning tackle and my rubber worm, just to see if the bass are biting, and if they are, I'll go to fly equipment right away and try out a squirm worm that I've been tying. Maybe I'll show you that a little bit later. But let me see if the fish are biting here. It's fairly early. It's a brisk wind, but right where I am now, I'm over on the west bank getting some protection from that wind. But get out a little further in the middle of the canal and we'll feel it in a second when I get to this opening where the canoe trail goes back into the swamp. There's also a place where the wind will be coming through pretty strong. So I'm going to fish this worm for a little while, see what happens, and spend the morning here. Well, on the first couple of casts, I had fish pick up the worm and start moving off with it. But I don't believe they were bass. I believe they were bluegills or perhaps warmouth, which are very common in this place. So I've already switched to the fly rod, which has a smaller hook and might be able to snare some of those smaller fish. We'll see about that, but that's what I'm trying right now. Well, I thought I'd give the larger popper a try for just a few minutes, and I was just about to give up on it because I hadn't had anything, but then this guy came up from out of the weeds there and hit it. Not the biggest bass in the pond probably, but I'm glad to have him all the same. Alright, I guess I'll try this larger popper for a little bit. Okay, another bass about the same size as the first, maybe a tad bigger, it's hard to tell. Inch or two. Just working along the shoreline. Up, he popped out. Self-release. That's okay. That's okay. I'm just working along this shoreline, throwing the popper in as close as I can get it to the water hyacinth that's floating along the bank. And I think there's some small ones hanging out there. So I'll keep this up for a while as long as they're still biting. Been getting a lot of fish to come up and hit the popper you see there on the left. It's about a size 4. And I think the fish hitting it were just too small. I couldn't get it in their mouth, so I'm switching to a slightly smaller popper here. Looks like about a size 6. We'll see if they can fit that one in their mouth. If not, I may have to go to my micro popper again. Okay, this is more what we're looking for. This guy's a little bigger, maybe 12 inches. It's starting to give up on the yellow popper, the smaller one. Wasn't getting much action from it, and it was getting tangled in the weeds more because it doesn't have a weed guard on it. But then in the last 2 minutes I've had 2 strikes from bass, so I guess I'll keep it on a while longer. Keep moving along the shoreline here. I'm trying to get the popper as close as I can to the weeds, right at the very edge. That's where the fish seem to be hanging out. Caught a bunch more bass on the surface using that somewhat smaller yellow popper. But I'm going to just try something different. This is one of the squirm worms that I tied up in the past couple of weeks. It's supposed to look like a rubber worm, which are very effective, but too heavy to throw on fly tackle. So I'm going to try this thing along the shore and see if I can come up with anything. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to what was working earlier. Okay, bass on the squirm worm. Bass are running a little small this morning, somewhere between 8 and 10 inches for the most part, but probably caught 8 or 9 so far, so I'm not really complaining. Alright, this guy's had enough. Let me get that thing out of his mouth and try for another one. It's getting close to 12:30. Action has slowed down a bit in the past hour or so. Still using squirm worm. I think I'm going to turn around and start heading back towards the boat ramp. No reason to spend the whole day out here, but so far it's been okay. Caught 8 or 9 bass, all on the fly rod, some on poppers, a couple on the squirm worm. So I'm just going to drift on back to the ramp. Let this wind push me back there and maybe troll a little bit with this squirm worm that I've got on the end at the end of my line. But not a bad day. Been pretty quiet. A couple of other boats, but not much else in the way of fellow anglers out here. Lots of birds. Saw a couple of gators. I don't know if you can see one out there. There's a gator out there in the middle. It's probably pretty tough to pick them up, but another week or two, once it really gets hot, we'll be seeing them all over the place. But all in all, not a bad morning. Thought I'd turn the camera on one last time. It's been actually a very productive 15 or 20 minutes. Just letting this wind blow me down the bank here and trolling that squirm worm behind the boat. These fish have been coming out and hitting it, so they're real hungry. Unfortunately, the bass have been kind of small today, mostly in this 8 to 10 inch class. Well, one sunny, grassy bass, but good action at least, so I'm